The Cubs close out August on a hot note, beating the Washington Nationals yesterday 5-3 to end their August. Now they open up September with one more game against Washington, and they go for their second straight sweep. We're going to talk about that and what it might take to catch the Atlanta Braves as the Cubs are starting to finally gain some ground. That and more on this edition of the Cubs Baseball Channel. Make sure to like and subscribe. Get in that comment section. Let us know if you think there's some action here and if you think the Cubs can make a late push in what I see some people on Twitter calling Craig Timber. We'll have to see. But for now, here is your invitation to our show. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Cubs Baseball Channel. My name is Anthony Pasquale. He is Mick Gillespie, and you can find him on Twitter at Broadcaster Mick. You can find me at Ant_Pasquale3. The Cubs are red hot right now. Winners of 5 in a row. They win again yesterday, 5-3 over the Washington Nationals to take both the first 2 games in this series. Mick, this team's playing some really good ball right now.
Well, we wanted them to beat the teams they're supposed to beat, and that's what they're doing, and it's been really fun to watch. It's been the top and the bottom of the lineup, the pitching, the bullpen's been good. How about Porter Hodge coming in and closing games out? The teams that they're playing aren't really that good, but they haven't been able to polish them off like they have now. And it's making such a big difference because, you got to get these wins and stack them up to have a chance. And, you get over 500, you start winning games, and it's a big deal. So I love what I'm seeing, and it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, the Cubs are 4 games over 500 now, and a big reason why is they played the month of August 11 games over 500. They closed the month at 19-8, which allowed them to make up some ground in the standings. You're probably going to have to put another month like this together to have a chance at making the playoffs, especially with how bad May and June were. But 19-8, that's about as good as you could ask for. And it really makes you wonder, what if they didn't get swept in Cleveland? How much different would we be talking about this team right now?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of woulda, coulda, shouldas here. I mean, think about how many bad months they had, how many opportunities at the beginning of the season where they had games won and then the bullpen couldn't do anything about it. The part of the season where they played like what I call a dead fish. And that's the problem in the game of baseball is that you don't get a ton of opportunities, but it's to lose games that you're supposed to win anyway. But when you start to look at it, you know what? I mean, the Braves are 13 games over 500. So, and they're in the last playoff spot. So there's still a mountain to climb, but 4.5 games is manageable. They just got to keep doing what they're doing.
Yeah, without a doubt. That's the only way to do it. Let me pose this question to you. They've got 26 games in September. What record do you think would put them into the playoffs? I know there's obviously some variables. You need the Braves and the Mets to lose a little bit and all those sorts of things. But, if you said, let's say they won 16 games and that puts them at 86, would that be enough? 87, 88? What do you think they need to do?
That is a tough question because the problem is that, last year the third playoff spot was, around 3 or 4 games over 500. I mean, you're trying to catch a team that's 13 games over 500. And Atlanta getting healthy, they've been kind of banged up. And, so that's I don't know. I mean, Cubs still only have a little under 5% chance to make the playoffs. And I guess it's because this number's so high, right? I mean, you probably need maybe over 20 wins.
Yeah, you probably need to get very close to 90, I think is the number. And, we obviously are rooting for them to make the playoffs, but maybe getting 87 and missing would give Jed Hoyer enough motivation or whoever it is making decisions by the time winter comes around to say, hey, we need to get over that hump. What do we need to do to get over that hump and start making some moves so it doesn't have to be a late push and instead you're cruising through the regular season with months like this, not in August, but maybe in April and in June and those sorts of things. But let's talk about waivers for a little bit. The Cubs obviously put Drew Smyly on waivers. He did not get claimed. He cleared waivers, so he's back with the Cubs for the rest of the season. The St. Louis Cardinals put Crow-Armstrong on waivers, and the Cubs claimed him and added him to the 40-man roster yesterday. I believe it was Daniel Palencia who was sent back down to AAA Iowa. So now Crow-Armstrong joins this bullpen. We haven't seen him pitch yet. He didn't pitch yesterday. But in terms of the bullpen, Jorge Lopez was back. He pitched yesterday. I know there was some talk about him maybe going on the injured list with that groin injury, but they felt it was good enough to have him pitch. But he pitched the 8th because Porter Hodge came in and locked down another save, his 3rd of the season. So Smyly, Armstrong, Lopez, and Hodge all in that bullpen right now.
Yeah, really good. And it's that time of year too, where you're trying to prove that, you're what you're going to do next year, and interesting that the Cubs would go out and get a reliever, but hey, it's on waivers. You get a chance to do it. I'm honestly, I'm not surprised that I'm a little surprised that no one took Drew Smyly. I figured that one of those teams would want him just because, how hard is it to get a left-hander that has had a better season than him right now. But, the business of baseball is one in which, it's not just what you do on the field. It's the money that's involved, the roster spot. It's if you take somebody, you got to get rid of somebody. So, I really thought that one of the team that a contending team was going to take him.
Yeah, and surprisingly, he gets kept. I think money is more of the reason why, not performance. He's been really strong this season. But as a result, now we enter September, and I know one of the first moves that the Cubs are going to make is Jordan Wicks being back. He's going to start today in D.C. He's going to be the first September call-up. But the issue is he was on the 60-day injured list. So they need to put him on the 40-man roster, which means somebody is going to get designated for assignment or put on the injured list. So we'll have to keep our eyes on that. I'm also curious if you expect one of those prospects to be coming up, whether it's, Casey or Shaw, Triantos, anybody like that. Do you think any of those guys are, ready to come up and help in September?
I mean, I think Owen Casey could be a possibility. I mean, he's had another good year, and I think he's the future for the Cubs in right. Why not let him get his feet wet and play some outfield and get some swings and take some lumps and have some success now when you've got a 5% chance, a 4.7% chance to make the playoffs, So I'm guessing him. There's probably a couple other guys on that list that I'm not even thinking about. But I feel like next spring training would have to be for these guys, where you're going to see a lot of the players that you're talking about battling for spots on the bench. I would think that players like Patrick Wisdom, which, the guy keeps surviving, but there wouldn't be a place for him. You'd probably want those young players to be on the bench and get the experience and battle for, positioning on the field. So the roster's definitely in flux just because of where all the young players are right now in AAA.
Yeah, and I agree with that completely. But the Cubs, as they stand right now, are winners of 5 in a row, 8 of their last 10. In their last 49 games, they're 31-18. So they've really stepped it up a notch for about a month and a half, 2 months now. And they've won 8 out of their last 9 series to put them 4 games above 500 in second place in the NL Central. But look at that number at the bottom of your screen. 4 games back of the Braves. They lost yesterday. So the Cubs are finally making up a little bit of ground. They're 8-2 in their last 10 games and have only picked up a game and a half. One of these teams, the Cubs or the Braves, aren't going to keep up this pace. Hopefully it's the Braves and the Cubs can stick with it and catch a pretty talented Atlanta Braves team. But things are going in the right direction at the very least. You're limiting that deficit and you're just playing good baseball, which is a good thing. Yeah,
well, that's it. Yeah, it's a shame that the Cubs aren't in better position right now.
For sure.
But you can only beat the teams that are on your roster on the schedule, and that's what they're doing. And it's the more pressure that they put on these teams. You get 4.5 games back, and you just keep winning. Anything can happen. We saw it. Sometimes for the good, sometimes for the bad. But you go out there and play good ball every day. Great things can happen. And that's kind of what we're seeing. But it's just been fun to watch these guys. And I don't know if it was a Taylor Swift candle or not. But whatever it is that's got this team moving in the right direction, I can't say that it's going to translate into next year, but I can say that there's still a chance this year that you can make some ripples, and 4 games isn't insurmountable. And the good news is not only, are you chasing one team, but you're chasing 3 teams. What if somebody else goes in the tank, So you got a chance, and you just got to keep winning games. And then they got to get the sweeps, and I know leading into, to the game today, you got to sweep. You can't settle for, hey, you know what? We took 2 out of 3. Series wins aren't good enough anymore. You gotta sweep.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that fully. And I think part of putting Jordan Wicks in the starting rotation is going to be to set up your rotation to try to get more sweeps. I think it might mean Kyle Hendricks back to the bullpen, but we'll keep an eye on that when his spot in the rotation comes up. But the numbers are slowly starting to rise. The Cubs with a 5.4% chance now to make the playoffs. So now it's only 4.6 that they don't. It's getting lower and lower. So we'll keep an eye on that too. But all the Cubs can do is continue to win ball games, and they have a chance to do that today against the Nationals. Early game, 12:35 Central, and it's Jordan Wicks off the injured list on the mound for the Cubs, 1-2 on the year with a 4.18 ERA against Mitchell Parker, who is 7-8 on the year with a 4.26 ERA as the Cubs go for the sweep.
Yeah, go Cubs, man. I mean, this is going to be interesting. Anytime you get late in the season, you see what the Cubs are doing with some of the veteran players on the roster as far as designating players and releasing them. Who could be next? Going to be interesting. Maybe by the time you guys are watching it, we find out. But it's been really eventful the last couple weeks. I don't think that's going to change.
Yeah, no doubt. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of roster changes just because September always has an influx of roster moves. And we've noticed from being in the division with the Brewers, with Craig Counsell managing them, that this is when the Brewers tend to make up a lot of ground. So hopefully the Cubs can do the same with Craig Counsell at the helm. But guys, thanks so much for joining us for the Cubs Baseball channel. We always appreciate you guys liking and subscribing, getting in that comment section, and of course, following us on Twitter, on Instagram, and on TikTok. But for now, hopefully we guys are talking to you with the brooms out after a Cubs win over the Nationals. Go Cubs.